Hello, and welcome back to Haunted Slumber. Before we begin, take a moment to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from tonight. I always enjoy reading them. Tonight, settle in for 2 hours of slow, immersive horror stories created to help you relax, quiet your mind, and gently drift towards sleep. There will be only 2 or 3 ads during the first 10 minutes. After that, the rest of the journey will be completely uninterrupted. If you enjoy calm, atmospheric horror made for late-night listening, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another haunting story. Now, make yourself comfortable. Let your body become completely still and allow the sounds of the outside world to slowly fade away. The night is quiet, your thoughts are beginning to soften, and somewhere in the darkness, a forgotten story is waiting to awaken. So close your eyes, take a slow breath, listen carefully, and let the night carry you deeper into haunted slumber. Let's begin. Story 1, The Growth Chart, The Job, is called Property Preservation, which has always seemed like a strange name for it, because by the time people like me arrive, there usually isn't much left worth preserving. The bank has already taken the house. The family has taken everything they can fit into a U-Haul, the back of a pickup truck, or the trunk of whatever car still runs. Sometimes neighbors have taken a few things too. Sometimes people who know how long foreclosure paperwork takes have already gone through the garage looking for tools. Then Denny and I show up. Trash out crew. That is what everyone actually calls us. We empty whatever the family left behind, change the locks, drain the plumbing, pour antifreeze into the toilets during winter, shut off utilities when necessary, screw plywood over broken windows, mow grass that has grown waist high, and put a lockbox on the front door for a realtor who might not even visit the property for another year. Sometimes, too, you learn a lot about people doing that kind of work. Mostly, you learn what they abandon. Couches are almost guaranteed. Nobody wants to move a couch. There are always mattresses, too, usually stained, sagging, and too large to fit through the doorway without folding them in half. Big televisions with cracked screens. Plastic toys missing wheels. Boxes of old magazines. Above-ground swimming pools filled with black water, leaves, dead insects, and sometimes animals you would rather not identify. Once, in a farmhouse outside Milton, we found an upright piano in the dining room. On top of it sat a casserole dish covered with aluminum foil. The casserole was still inside. Nobody had lived there for 6 months. I remember standing beside Denny while he lifted one corner of the foil. The smell nearly knocked us over. Denny put the foil back down and said, "Somebody's mother is still planning to come home." We laughed. That is the kind of joke you make doing this job. If you don't laugh, some of those houses start getting inside your head. You also learn what people take. Jewelry, obviously, computers, medicine, important paperwork, family photographs. Photo albums disappear almost every time. Even when the family leaves dishes, clothes, and furniture behind, dogs usually go with them. Cats are less predictable. More than once, we have opened a house and found a cat that had apparently been left behind, living on whatever it could catch or tear open. Urns always go. 9 years in property preservation, hundreds of homes. And I have never found an urn containing someone's ashes. People might leave their wedding china, grandmother's couch, a freezer full of food, or boxes containing every school assignment their children ever completed. But they take their dead. There is one thing nobody takes, though. Nobody can. The growth chart. You know what I mean. A door frame, usually somewhere near the kitchen or pantry, where somebody has measured the kids over the years. Little pencil lines climbing upward, sometimes marker, sometimes pen. A name next to each line. An age, a date. Katie, age 4. Katie, age 5. Katie, 5.5. Because apparently Katie had strong opinions about that extra 6 months. You see brothers measured beside sisters, cousins beside cousins, and sometimes the parents too, because one of the kids insisted everybody participate. It is always strange seeing those marks after the family is gone. You can pack pictures, you can pack toys, you can pack the bed where a kid slept, and the table where they ate breakfast. You cannot take 3 inches of painted wood from the kitchen doorway without cutting the house apart. So the family leaves. The cars drive away. The bank takes possession. And the little marks stay there. Sometimes I am the last person who will ever read them. That used to be the saddest part of my job. Then I noticed the first extra mark. The house was on a county road about 40 minutes outside town. Single-story ranch, faded siding, gravel driveway, burned barrel in the backyard. The place was mostly empty. The previous owners had taken nearly everything important. We removed an old sofa, 2 broken bed frames, some ruined clothes, a refrigerator that smelled like death, and 6 bags of garbage from the garage. The pantry had one of those growth charts. A boy named Marcus, age 3 at the bottom. Then 4, 5, 6, the marks rose every year, sometimes twice a year. By 11, Marcus had reached about 5 feet. The last normal mark was dated April. That made sense. According to our paperwork, the family accepted cash for keys in May. Cash for keys is exactly what it sounds like. The bank pays people a little money to leave peacefully instead of dragging the foreclosure process out. The house was ours by the beginning of June. I remember checking Marcus's chart because something above it looked wrong. About 5 inches higher than his April mark was another line. No name, no age. The mark wasn't pencil either. It had been scratched into the paint. It looked as if someone had taken a nail and dragged it sideways through the doorframe. Beside it was a date, June 9. I stared at it for a while. Denny came up behind me. "What?" I pointed. He shrugged. "Kid came back. We boarded this place already." "When?" I checked my paperwork in the truck. June 3. We had completed the board up 6 days before the date scratched into the wall. "Squatter," Denny said. "A squatter measured himself? Squatter kid. How'd he get inside?" Denny looked toward the back of the house. "People pull plywood. That happens. You can screw a window shut and somebody with enough determination will still get inside. Foreclosed houses attract teenagers, homeless people, thieves, drug users, and sometimes former owners who change their minds about leaving. I walked around the exterior anyway. The plywood was exactly how I had left it. I'm particular about screws. Denny makes fun of me for it. When I put up a board, I make sure every screw head sits in roughly the same position. It is stupid, maybe, but after 9 years you develop habits. Every screw was seated exactly right. None had been removed. None had been replaced. The doors were locked. No broken windows, no signs of entry. I checked inside for footprints. Nothing obvious. I told Rick at the office. Rick listened. rubbed his chin and said, "Write it up as vandalism." Then he billed the bank for an inspection and service fee. Rick would bill a hurricane if somebody gave him its mailing address. That should have been the end of it. The second house changed things. It was a foreclosure in town, maybe 3 blocks from an elementary school. Nice neighborhood once. 2-story place. Family had clearly lived there for years. You could see where furniture had been because the carpet beneath it was cleaner. There were drawings on the garage wall. Glow in the dark stars still covered the ceiling in one bedroom. The kitchen doorway had a growth chart for 2 girls. Purple marker for one, green for the other. Their marks crossed over each other as they got older, the way siblings do. The younger one caught up for a while. Then the older girl shot ahead again. The highest normal mark belonged to the older sister, 13 years old, 5'2". Above her was a scratch, 5'9". There was a date next to it. 11 days after we sealed the property. Above that was another scratch, 6'1", dated 4 days later. I remember Denny standing beside me with his arms crossed. He did not make the squatter joke. That was when I realized he was scared too. Denny is the kind of guy who laughs when something makes him uncomfortable. Tornado warning. He makes jokes. Dead raccoon in a crawl space, jokes. We once found blood all over the bathroom in an abandoned house, and he spent 20 minutes pretending we had walked into a murder mystery. That day, he said nothing. Afterward, he started carrying the Sawzall during walkthroughs. Usually, it stayed on his shoulder or in the truck until we needed it. Now he held it in both hands. Not turned on, just ready. I started thinking about the marks. That might sound harmless until you picture the action itself. Someone had been standing inside a sealed house. In the dark. They had placed their back against a door frame. Then somebody else had put a hand flat on top of their head and scratched a line into the wall. That is what bothered me most. Growth charts are intimate. They are something parents do for children. You stand straight, heels against the floor. No cheating. Stop standing on your toes. Then somebody laughs and makes the mark. Good job. Look how big you're getting. Whatever was leaving those scratches was repeating that ritual, and whatever it was measuring was growing fast. We found more after that. Not every house, maybe 1 in 15, then 1 in 10. Once you know what to look for, you start checking. A farmhouse with 3 normal children's names and 1 scratched line 14 inches above them. A duplex with no children listed anywhere, but 4 marks climbing from 5'4" to almost 7 feet. One property had the marks inside a closet rather than a doorway. Another had them behind a refrigerator. Always scratched. Always dated after the property had been secured. Denny eventually stopped asking me whether I wanted to report them. Rick called everything vandalism. The bank paid. Nobody cared. The job kept moving. Then, last month, I did something stupid. I went back to the Marcus house, alone, Sunday afternoon, off the clock. I had been thinking about it for more than a year. 14 months had passed since we first boarded the property. The house still had not sold. According to the database, no contractors had been assigned there after us except lawn maintenance. I drove out there without telling Denny. The weeds were taller. The burn barrel had rusted through. One shutter had fallen from the front window. The plywood remained. I went around back. My screws, still there, untouched. I removed the board covering the sliding door. The moment I stepped inside, I knew nobody had been living there. Dust covered everything, thick dust. 14 months of it. There were no trails through it, no footprints except mine, no food wrappers, no blankets, no cigarette butts, nothing. The house smelled sealed, dead air, dust and old paint. I walked straight to the pantry. 6 new marks had been added. I stopped breathing for a second. The original scratched mark was still there. June 9. Above it was another, then another. Each had a date. The handwriting, if you could call scratching handwriting, was careful. Small, neat. Somebody had taken their time. I did the math. If the dates were accurate, whatever was being measured had grown 9 inches in 14 months. The newest mark on the door frame was at 6'8". I am 6'1". I stood beside it. The scratch was several inches above my head. Then I looked upward. There was another mark, but the door frame had ended. So the next mark had been scratched into the wall above the doorway. Higher still was another. I backed away. The final scratch was almost where the wall met the ceiling. I remember thinking that had to be it. A person could not get any taller without ducking constantly. Then I saw another line. It started at the top of the wall. It continued across the ceiling, only a few inches. But the meaning was obvious. Whatever they had been measuring no longer fit upright in the room. It had grown until it reached the ceiling. Then, somehow, the measurement had continued horizontally, as though something incredibly tall had bent over. Folded, like taking a sunflower and bending its stalk beneath a porch roof because it had grown too high. There was no date beside that mark. I stared at it until my neck hurt. The whole time, I had the terrible feeling that something was behind me. Nothing moved. The house made no sound. I turned around. Empty pantry, empty kitchen, dust everywhere, no footprints. I went outside. Then I did the most ridiculous thing possible. I screwed the plywood back over the sliding door. I even clocked the screws, all 4 heads facing the same way. I don't know what I believed that would accomplish. Maybe nothing. It was simply my job. You finish the board up. You secure the property. You clock the screws. Monday morning, I told Rick everything. For once, he did not immediately mention vandalism. He pulled the old file. The Marcus property had first entered the bank's system 6 years earlier during a previous foreclosure attempt. Apparently, the family had managed to save the house that time. Rick found the original trash out inspection. 1 line had been typed into the notes. Marks on pantry frame, patched and painted. I read it twice. What marks? Rick shrugged. No pictures. Who did the job? He checked. Company had gone out of business. Denny looked over my shoulder. So those marks were there before Marcus? Apparently, but they painted over them. Rick nodded. I asked whether the previous contractor had reported anything unusual. Rick told me to stop wasting company time. That was Wednesday. I quit Thursday. No dramatic speech, no argument. I handed Rick my keys, company phone, lockbox master list, and fuel card. He asked whether I was serious. I said yes. He reminded me that finding another job with similar pay would be difficult. I said I knew. He still owes me 11 days. I don't care. I have not answered his calls. Denny called twice. I answered the second time. He said Rick had assigned somebody else to my route. Then he asked if I remembered the house with the 2 girls. Purple marker. Green marker. I said yes. Denny told me the realtor finally entered it. Apparently, she refused to finish the walkthrough. She claimed something had scratched the ceiling above the kitchen doorway. Not one line. Dozens. Denny wanted to know if I planned to tell anyone. Police? News? The bank? I asked him what exactly we were supposed to say. Somebody who cannot enter locked houses is measuring something that cannot fit inside them? We did not have evidence. Only photographs of scratches. I deleted mine. I wish I hadn't. I also wish I had. For the first week after quitting, I barely slept. Every sound in the house woke me. Pipes, heating vents, floorboards, tree branches touching the siding. I started checking our windows before bed. Then the doors. Then the pantry. Especially the pantry. Because we measure our daughter too. Everybody does. Same kind of doorway. Same little ritual. Green marker from the junk drawer. My wife writes the dates because my handwriting is terrible. Abby, age 2. Abby, 3, 4, 5. There is a mark from when she turned 6 and demanded to be measured twice because she believed eating dinner had made her taller. 7, 8, 9. The most recent line is there at about 4'5". First of last month. I've stared at those marks every day since I quit. I considered painting over them. Couldn't do it. Not at first. Those are Abby's years. You erase enough things from a house and it stops feeling like yours. So I left them, but I stopped measuring her. The first of this month came and went. My wife asked if I had forgotten. I said we could do it later. Then another week passed. Abby asked too. I distracted her. Tonight, after her bath, she came into the kitchen wearing pajamas covered in little yellow stars. Her hair was still wet. She stood beside the pantry doorway and ran one finger along the old marks. Dad, I was washing dishes. Yeah? When do I get measured? My hand stopped in the sink. What? My height. She pointed at the frame. We always do it on the first. I know. You forgot. I didn't forget. She looked disappointed. I dried my hands. For a moment, I considered doing it. Just one more mark. My daughter. My house. Nothing wrong with that. Then I remembered the ceiling in the Marcus house. I remembered the scratched line turning sideways above me. I put the marker back in the drawer. I think we might take a break from measuring for a while. Abby shrugged. Okay, I expected questions. There were none. She walked toward the hallway. Then she stopped. Daddy? Yeah? It already measured me. My stomach tightened. What? She turned around. It's okay. You don't have to. I stared at her. What do you mean it already measured you? Last night, every hair on my arms lifted. Who measured you? She frowned like the question did not make sense. It did. What did? She looked toward the pantry, then toward the ceiling. I don't know. I crossed the room and knelt in front of her. Abby, listen to me. Did somebody come into your room? She shook her head. Did you see someone? I was sleeping. Then, how do you know? She smiled. Because it told me. What did it tell you? That I'm getting big. My mouth went dry. I stood up slowly. My wife called from upstairs, asking whether everything was okay. I said yes. I don't know why. Maybe because I did not want Abby to become frightened. Maybe because some old part of me was still doing my job. Secure the property. Keep everything quiet. Finish the board up. I took Abby upstairs and checked every room. Windows locked. Doors locked. Nothing disturbed. Then I checked her bedroom. Her blankets were messy from sleeping. Toys covered the floor. Everything looked normal, until I saw the wall beside her closet. At first, I thought it was a crack in the paint, a small horizontal line, about 4'6" from the floor, 1 inch above her last mark downstairs. No date, no name, just a scratch. I did not tell my wife. I put Abby to bed in our room. My wife thinks there is something wrong with me. She may be right. It is 2:17 in the morning now. Neither of them is awake. I am sitting in the kitchen with every light turned on. I moved a chair beneath the pantry doorway an hour ago. I checked the old marks again. Abby, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, nothing new. I almost felt better. Then I noticed something on the wall above the frame. A scratch. Very faint, higher than I can reach without the chair. There is no date. I climbed up and looked closer. The line is fresh. White dust from the drywall is still sitting beneath it. I checked the ceiling. Nothing, not yet. I have the front door open. My wife and daughter are asleep upstairs. I know I should wake them. I know we should leave. But I keep thinking about all those houses, all those families who left, all those growth charts abandoned behind them. I thought the marks appeared because the houses were empty. I thought whatever did it moved in after people left. Now I wonder if I had it backward. Maybe the families did not leave first. Maybe something began measuring their children. Maybe that was when they knew it was time to go. There was a sound upstairs a few minutes ago. A long creak. Not the floor, not the bed. Wood under pressure, like branches bending. I am holding the green marker from our junk drawer. I don't remember taking it out. There is something else I keep thinking about. The Marcus house. Those first marks were patched and painted 6 years before we arrived. But Marcus's family stayed. They had another child's growth chart on top of the old one without ever knowing what had been underneath. Maybe whatever does this does not follow houses. Maybe it follows the marks. Maybe every time somebody places a child against a doorway and draws that little line above their head, something notices. Something that likes watching children grow. Something that keeps measuring long after the parents stop. I just heard Abby laughing upstairs, very softly. Then she said something. I could not hear the first part. The second part was clear. No, I'm not taller than Daddy yet. I'm going upstairs now. I don't know what I am going to find. But before I do, I need somebody else to know this. If you measure your children against a door frame, check above the highest mark. Check the wall. Check the ceiling. And if there is a line you do not remember making, do not paint over it. Do not wait to see if another appears. Do not board the windows. Do not change the locks. Do not worry about what fits in the U-Haul. Take your photographs. Take your pets. Take your children. Leave everything else. Because tonight, after her bath, Abby asked me when she was getting measured again. I told her we might stop for a while. She said that was okay. She said it already measured her last night while she was sleeping. And that she is getting so big. Story 2. I was 15 the first time I truly believed someone was trying to get inside my house. Even now, after all these years, I can remember almost every detail of that night. It happened sometime in the late 1990s, before everyone had a cell phone in their pocket, and before you could instantly message someone whenever you felt uncomfortable. If you were home alone, you really were alone. You had a landline, or, if your family was a little more modern, a cordless phone that only worked as long as you stayed close enough to the house. My parents had gone out for dinner. That alone was unusual. They had been married for years, And between work, bills, my younger brother, and everything else that came with raising two kids, they almost never went anywhere by themselves. But my mom had been complaining that they had not had a proper date night in months, so my dad finally made a reservation at one of their favorite restaurants. My little brother was spending the night with our grandparents. That left me alone, completely alone. I had begged my parents to let me stay home. "I'm 15, I told them. My mother gave me the look she always gave me when I said my age, as though it automatically made me an adult. "I'll be fine," I continued. "We have neighbors everywhere." My dad reminded me to lock the doors. I know how to lock a door. He told me not to answer it for anyone. I know. My mother made me promise not to invite friends over. I rolled my eyes and promised. Looking back, I probably acted as though they were being ridiculous. At 15, spending a night alone in the house felt like freedom. No parents walking into the room, no little brother bothering me. No one telling me to lower the television volume or clean up after myself. I had pizza in the oven, popcorn on the counter, and a stack of VH tapes my dad had rented earlier that afternoon. The cordless phone sat on the coffee table in case something happened. At the time, I could not imagine what something might actually mean. My parents left a little after 7. I stood in the doorway and watched their car disappear around the corner. Then I shut the door, locked it, and immediately turned the television louder than I was normally allowed. For the first hour or two, I loved being alone. The house felt different without everyone else in it. Bigger, quieter, almost like it belonged to me. I ate pizza directly from the plate instead of sitting at the kitchen table. I drank too much soda. I left the popcorn bag open beside me and dropped pieces onto the carpet without worrying about anyone complaining. I also turned on almost every light downstairs. I told myself it was because I liked bright rooms. The truth was that I was not quite brave enough to sit alone in a dark house. Our home was not especially old or creepy. It was a normal suburban house built sometime in the 70s. 2 floors, attached garage, small backyard, front porch, and a narrow hallway leading from the living room toward the kitchen. There had never been any ghost stories about it. Nothing strange had ever happened there. At least, nothing I knew about. Around 9 o'clock, the first movie ended. The credits rolled while I sat on the floor finishing the last pieces of popcorn. I switched the television off for a moment so I could rewind the tape before putting in the next one. That was when I noticed how quiet the house had become. The silence felt different once the television stopped. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. The clock above the fireplace ticked steadily. Wind moved gently outside and pushed small branches against one of the side windows. The heating system clicked somewhere inside the walls. Normal sounds. Every house makes them. But when you are alone, especially at night, every small noise suddenly seems to have a reason behind it. I remember thinking that I should put the next movie on quickly before I started frightening myself. I knelt in front of the VCR and pressed the eject button. The tape slid out. I rewound it and picked up another movie. I had the V8s halfway inside the player when I heard something from the front door. Metal scraping against metal. Very soft. I stopped moving. The tape remained halfway inside the machine. For several seconds I listened. Nothing. I almost laughed at myself. Then it came again. Scrape, pause, scrape. The sound was clearer this time. Someone was putting something into the lock. My stomach dropped. The first thought that came into my mind was actually comforting. Mom and Dad. Maybe they had forgotten something. Maybe my mother had left her purse or my father had forgotten his wallet. I stood. For 1 second, I even smiled. Then I started toward the front door. I had taken only a few steps when I stopped. If it was my parents, why were they struggling with the lock? They had keys, the right keys. My dad had used his key thousands of times. There would be one quick movement, the lock would turn, and the door would open. What I was hearing did not sound like someone unlocking a familiar door. It sounded like someone trying different keys, or pushing something into the lock and moving it around. Scrape, pause, scrape. I stood in the middle of the living room. The sound continued. Whoever was outside did not knock. They did not ring the doorbell. They did not call out. They simply kept trying. That frightened me more than someone knocking would have. If a stranger had knocked, I could have ignored them. If they had called through the door asking for help, I could have answered without opening it, but someone quietly working at the lock did not want me to know they were there. I held my breath. The scraping stopped. The sudden silence made everything worse. I stared at the door. Nothing happened. 30 seconds passed. Maybe a minute. My mind started building explanations. Perhaps I had misunderstood the sound. Maybe a branch had scraped against something outside. Maybe the metal mailbox had moved in the wind. Maybe the house was settling. I had watched a scary movie already that night. Maybe I was turning ordinary noises into something they were not. I almost convinced myself. Then the doorknob moved. It did not turn all the way. Just slightly. Enough to make the latch click. I froze. Every hair on my arm stood up. My mouth became so dry that swallowing hurt. The knob slowly returned to its normal position. Someone was definitely outside. I backed away one step at a time. The cordless phone. That was all I could think about. The phone was sitting on the coffee table, maybe 6 feet away. Earlier, it had seemed like nothing. Now the distance between me and that phone felt enormous. I did not want to move quickly. I had this stupid feeling that if the person outside heard me, they would know exactly where I was. The doorknob moved again. This time, whoever was trying it held the pressure longer. The latch rattled softly inside the frame. They were testing the door, seeing whether it would open. I grabbed the cordless phone so quickly that it nearly slipped from my hands. My fingers were shaking. I thought about calling my parents. Then I realized I could not remember the name of the restaurant. I knew it. Of course I knew it. My parents had mentioned it several times that afternoon. But fear had emptied my head. Then I thought about calling 911. My thumb hovered over the buttons, and somehow, unbelievably, I hesitated. What if it was nothing? What if my parents really were outside? What if I called the police and everyone showed up only to discover that I had panicked because of some harmless noise? I imagined my father trying not to laugh. I imagined police officers looking at one another as though I were some stupid kid who had watched too many horror movies. Even at 15, embarrassment had enough power to compete with fear. I hate that I questioned myself. I hate that part of me believed being embarrassed would somehow be worse than discovering there really was someone trying to enter the house. The front door became still again. I decided to look outside. There was a large window beside the living room facing the porch and front yard. Thick curtains covered it. I approached slowly. Every step felt too loud. The carpet barely made any sound beneath my feet, but I still imagined someone outside hearing me. I reached the window. The curtains were closed tightly enough that nobody should have been able to see inside. I slipped one finger between them. For a moment, I was afraid to pull them apart. I imagined seeing a face directly on the other side, someone staring back. I almost stopped. Then, I opened a tiny gap. The porch was empty. I blinked. The porch light was on. It illuminated everything clearly. The concrete steps, my mother's flower pots, the welcome mat, the railing, part of the driveway. There was no person standing there, no car parked at the curb, no shadow near the door, nothing. I opened the curtains slightly wider. Still nothing. The yard beyond the porch was dark, but anyone standing near the front door would have been completely visible. I stared for several seconds. My heartbeat started slowing. Maybe I really had imagined it. Then the doorknob turned, right in front of me. I watched it happen. The brass knob slowly rotated downward. The latch rattled. I could hear the mechanism moving inside the door. But there was nobody on the porch. No hand touched the knob. No sleeve. No shadow. Nothing. The knob was moving by itself. I screamed. I jumped backwards so quickly that my legs struck the coffee table. I fell over it and landed hard on the carpet. The cordless phone flew from my hand. It bounced once and slid beneath a chair. The doorknob immediately stopped moving. I scrambled after the phone. I do not remember dialing 911. I remember the dispatcher's voice, but I cannot remember exactly what I told her. Probably something incoherent. Someone was trying to get in. The door was moving. Nobody was outside. I was alone. She kept telling me to stay away from the door. She asked whether all the windows were locked. I did not know. That terrified me all over again. What if whatever had been at the front door moved somewhere else? I ran through the downstairs, checking windows while keeping the phone pressed against my ear. Every window was locked. The back door was locked. The garage entrance was locked. I turned on even more lights, although I am not sure there were many left to turn on. Then I sat on the floor in the middle of the living room where I could see the front entrance. The dispatcher stayed on the line. I stared at the doorknob. It did not move again. The first police car arrived within minutes. The flashing red and blue lights outside were probably the most comforting thing I had ever seen. 2 officers came to the door. I did not open it until the dispatcher confirmed they were really police. They searched the porch first, then the yard, then the side of the house. One officer walked around back while another checked the bushes near the front windows. They searched the garage. Nothing. My parents arrived not long afterward. My mother looked terrified. My father looked confused and worried. I tried explaining what had happened. The scraping, the knob, the empty porch. The police examined the front door carefully. There were no scratches around the lock, no pry marks, no damage, no footprints on the porch. The ground was dry, so footprints would not necessarily have been visible, but there was still nothing to suggest anyone had been there. One officer opened the door and stood outside. The other remained inside. They tested the knob. When the officer inside turned it, his hand and arm were clearly visible from the window. "You'd see someone standing here," the officer outside said. I remember becoming frustrated. I know, he probably did not mean to sound doubtful. He was simply explaining the physical situation. But I felt as though nobody understood. I had been standing at the window. I had watched the knob move. I had been looking directly at the porch. There had been no one there. Eventually, the police left. My parents checked every room before we went upstairs. My little brother stayed with my grandparents an extra night. I slept in my parents' bedroom. Or at least I tried. Every time the house made a sound, I opened my eyes. Whenever the heating system clicked, my heart jumped. I kept expecting to hear metal scraping against the lock. Nothing happened. By morning, the whole experience already felt less real. Daylight does that. Things that feel impossible at night become embarrassing after sunrise. My father suggested that maybe someone had tried the wrong house. My mother said fear might have made me think the knob moved more than it really did. One of the officers had suggested pressure changes or a problem with the latch. I desperately wanted one of those explanations to be true. For weeks afterward, I checked the front door constantly. I would lock it, walk away, then return to make sure. Sometimes I stood at the window at night and stared onto the porch. Nothing happened again while I lived there. Eventually, life moved on. I stopped thinking about it every day. Then every week. Then almost completely. Years passed. I went to college. My brother grew up. My parents eventually decided the house was too large for the two of them. They sold it to a younger couple. I remember walking through my old bedroom one final time after most of the furniture had been removed. The house seemed smaller than I remembered. The front door looked ordinary. For a moment, I stood beside the living room window and thought about that night. I told myself I had been 15, scared, home alone for the first time, probably watching horror movies. Human memory is unreliable. Maybe I truly had misunderstood what happened. That explanation had become comfortable. Then the new owners moved in. They lasted less than 6 months. I did not know that at first. My parents had moved to another part of town, and we had no reason to stay in contact with the people who bought the old house. Then, one afternoon, my mother ran into the woman at a grocery store. It was a small town kind of conversation. My mom asked how she and her husband were doing. The woman asked about my parents' new place. Eventually, my mom asked how they liked the house. The woman gave a strange little laugh. She said they were actually moving. My mom was surprised. They had barely been there. She asked why. The woman hesitated. Then she said, "The strangest thing keeps happening." My mother later told me she already felt uncomfortable before the woman explained. "We keep hearing someone trying to unlock the front door at night." My mother said her entire body went cold. The woman apparently laughed again, not because she found it funny, but because people sometimes laugh when they are describing something they know sounds ridiculous. She said it had happened repeatedly, always after dark, usually late at night. First came the scraping sound, metal against metal, scrape, pause, scrape, exactly what I had heard. Then the doorknob would move, sometimes slowly, other times hard enough to make the latch shake. My mother asked whether they had called the police. They had, several times. Nothing was ever found. My mother then asked the question she already knew the answer to. "Did you ever see anyone outside?" The woman shook her head. That's the weird part. Every time the sound started, either she or her husband would look through the window. The porch would be empty. No person, no vehicle, nothing. My mother stood in the middle of that grocery store listening to a stranger describe the exact experience I had told her about years earlier. The same house, the same front door, the same scraping, the same moving knob, the same empty porch. She did not tell the woman about me. Not then. She said she did not know how. What could she say? Oh yes, our teenage son experienced exactly the same thing, but we sold you the house anyway? Instead, she smiled politely and listened. The woman said they had replaced the locks. It changed nothing. They replaced the entire doorknob and locking mechanism. The sound returned. They installed a motion light. Sometimes the light switched on seconds before the scraping began. When they checked the porch, nobody was there. They even installed one of those early home security cameras. The picture quality was terrible by today's standards, but it covered the front steps. One night, the couple heard the familiar scraping. The husband watched the live camera feed while the wife stood inside near the door. The camera showed an empty porch. Then, while they were both watching, the doorknob began turning. That was when they decided to leave. When my mother called and told me the story, I did not say anything for a long time. All those explanations I had spent years building disappeared. I had not imagined it. Fear had not filled in the blanks. There had been something wrong with that door. Or that house. I asked my mother if she remembered the night when I was 15. She said yes. Then she apologized. I told her she did not need to. What was she supposed to believe? Even I had eventually convinced myself it probably had a normal explanation. I tried finding out who owned the house afterward. The couple moved. Another family apparently bought it. I never contacted them. Part of me wanted to. I wanted to ask whether they heard anything. But another part of me was afraid they would say yes. Or worse, that they would say no. Because if the sounds had stopped, I would start wondering why. Did whatever caused them finally get inside? I still do not know what was trying to open that front door. Maybe something died in the house long before my family lived there. Maybe someone had once stood on that porch desperate to get inside and somehow repeated the act long after they were gone. Maybe it was something that had never been human. I have considered every explanation. None feels right. There is another possibility I try not to think about. Maybe nothing was trying to get in. Maybe whatever made those sounds was already inside the house. Maybe the scraping at the lock was not an attempt to enter. Maybe it was pretending. Maybe it wanted whoever lived there to stand near the front door, to look outside, to focus on the empty porch while something else moved behind them. I think about that sometimes. I think about how I stood with my face only inches from the window, staring outside. I think about the sound of the knob moving beside me, and I think about the few seconds before I screamed and fell backward. I never looked behind myself. Not once. I do not know if it wanted inside. I do not know if it had been inside the entire time. I only know what I saw. I know what I heard. I know that doorknob moved directly in front of me. And I know, with absolute certainty, that there was nobody standing on that porch. Story 3. You do not know how long you have been there. That is the first thought. It arrives slowly, as if your mind has been sleeping somewhere far away and is only now returning to you piece by piece. How long has it been? Minutes? Hours? Years? Has it even been long at all? Where are you? Why is everything so dark? The questions continue without answers. They repeat inside your head, softer each time, until suddenly there is light. Bright light. Too bright. You sit upright in bed. Your heart is beating fast. The room is dark, but for a few seconds you can still see the light from the dream behind your eyes. You rub your face. Why that dream? You cannot remember enough of it to explain why it frightened you. There was darkness. A feeling of being trapped. someone watching. Or maybe that part came after. You stand and walk towards the kitchen. Your throat is dry, painfully dry. You turn on the faucet and fill a glass. When you look down, you realize the water has already reached the top. You do not remember watching it fill. You shut off the tap, a nice glass of water to calm the nerves. The words sound reasonable, normal. You look towards the window. It is completely black outside, not ordinary night black. You cannot even see the bushes beyond the glass. You lift the glass. Must be late. You take a sip. Cold water touches your tongue. For a moment, it is the best feeling in the world. Cool, clean, safe, you swallow. Then your throat feels dry again. You drink more. Still thirsty. You finish the entire glass in several desperate gulps. Nothing, the thirst remains. You put the glass down and open the refrigerator. A small box of fruit juice sits on the shelf. Good thing the kids always ask for these. You grab it. I love them when I need something more refreshing. You close the refrigerator. Then you turn around. You are no longer in the kitchen. You are sitting on a picnic blanket. Warm sunlight touches your skin. Children are laughing nearby. A soft breeze moves through the grass. For a moment, you do not question it. Why would you? These warm days are your favorite. The sun is comfortable without being too hot. The children are running around, shouting and chasing one another. Everyone loves days like this. You push the straw into the juice box. The fruit punch is cold against your fingers. You drink. Sweet, refreshing. You close your eyes and lift your face towards the sun. Everything is perfect. Then you look down. There is something beside the picnic blanket. What is that? The moment you ask, you know it was the wrong question. Never ask that question here. Questions make things change. The sunlight weakens. The laughter becomes distant. You are standing now. There is an alley in front of you. You do not remember getting up. You do not remember the children leaving. The alley is impossibly dark. The afternoon sun is still shining behind you, but none of that light enters the narrow space between the buildings. Why is that alley so black? Another wrong question. The darkness seems to react. It stretches towards you. Not physically, it feels like pressure against your chest. Cold emptiness pushes inward. You cannot breathe. Your heart slows. Or maybe speeds up. You cannot tell. You stand at the entrance. Every part of you says not to enter. But there is nothing behind you anymore. You turn your head slightly. Only darkness. So you step forward. One step, then another. The floor changes beneath your feet. Tiles, black and white. A red light glows somewhere ahead. The darkness has an end. That helps. You keep moving. The alley becomes narrower. Brick walls rise on both sides. The red light paints the edges of everything. Do not look back. You know that rule. You are safe if you do not look behind you. You are safe as long as you keep moving forward. You repeat that thought like a prayer. Forward, forward, forward. The walls suddenly end. You step into a room. A kitchen. You recognize it immediately. It is the kitchen from the house where you grew up. The cupboards are the same. The old table stands in the center. The refrigerator hums in the corner. You know this place. More importantly, you know why you are here. This is where you come to be free. But it is not safe. You look left. There is the garden door. Good, the garden is still there. Do not look right. You know what is on the other side of the kitchen. Do not let yourself see it. You have already seen the garden. That is enough. Do not look right. Your thoughts begin to change. You feel the room trying to pull your attention in that direction. Before it can, you run towards the garden. The door opens. Warm air touches your face. You step through. Instantly, everything is better. Everyone is here. People are laughing. Children are playing. The garden stretches far beyond the size any real garden could have. You built this place, or imagined it, or learned it. You are not sure which. It does not matter. The hedges form long walls covered in flowers. Lights hang from branches. The sky above is dark but beautiful, filled with stars brighter than anything you have ever seen while awake. There is your treehouse, your favorite place. You climb, then you jump from the platform. You do not fall, you fly. Freedom fills your chest. Below you, the entire garden spreads outward. The maze, the fences, the paths, the lights, the houses, all of it belongs to you. This place never leaves. You love it here. It is the one place where you are safe. You can stay until everything outside is over. You only need one thing, your phone. You reach into your pocket. It is there. Good. As long as you have the phone, everything will be okay. You land softly near the central path. You speak with the captain for a while. Then the doctor. Then the mayor. You visit every part of the garden that makes you feel safe. The metal maze used to frighten you, but not anymore. You walk deeper into it and deliberately lose yourself. You know you can leave whenever you want. At one point, the floor disappears beneath you. You fall from the edge into space. Blackness surrounds you. Years ago, that would have caused panic. Now you simply decide to return. You are back on the ledge. Easy, you smile. Control, that is what this place is. Control. The younger ones gather around colored lights and laugh. The older ones repair the fences. The doctor checks on everyone. The mayor watches from the path. Everything is right. Everything is where it belongs. You reach into your pocket. Your hand finds nothing. You freeze. Where is your phone? You check again. Empty. Other pocket. Nothing. Back pocket. Nothing. No, you search your clothes harder. How? You had just checked it. It was there. You were careful. You were always careful. How? Your voice echoes through the garden. No one answers. Not now. Panic enters your chest. Please, you force yourself to breathe. Calm down. You are fine. We are fine. You do not need the phone. It does not mean anything. You still control this place. Then you hear screaming. You turn. The little ones are gone. Every single one. The colored lights continue glowing, but no children stand beneath them. Only the mayor remains. His face is pale. The treehouse door slams shut. You run towards the doctor. The fence is broken, he tells you. What? The fence is broken. Why? He does not answer. You turn towards the stairs. They are gone. You know there should be stairs here. You built them. You have used them 1,000 times. You follow the hedge instead. Branches scrape your arms. You realize you are standing inside the hedge. How did you get here? You did not walk into it. You did not want to be inside it. Then you remember. The phone. The phone is gone. That is why. You lost control. It's not working. The words sound weak. You push through branches. Leaves cover your face. Thorns scratch your skin. You try to change the garden. Nothing happens. You try to make the stairs return. Nothing. You try to move yourself somewhere else. Nothing. Why can I never leave when I want to? The garden becomes darker. One by one, the stars disappear. They have gone to sleep. That is what you tell yourself. The stars are only sleeping. You know better. A red light appears in the distance. The doorway, the same doorway you entered through. Somehow, you are back near the kitchen. Because the phone is gone. You know how this works now. There is only one way out. Through the kitchen. But entering the kitchen means facing the other side. The side you refuse to look at. You stand before the door. Fear tries to enter. You push it away. You are strong here. Fear is unnecessary. You have learned how this world works. You know what you can do. This place is yours. Then where is your phone? You step into the doorway. Red light covers the room. The black and white tiles look as if they have been soaked in blood. Loose wires hang from the ceiling. Small red Christmas lights twist around them, flickering softly. She is there. Of course she is. She is always there. Waiting, she stands on the far side of the kitchen, motionless. Her body is mostly hidden in shadow. Dark red skin. Or maybe black. You cannot tell where she ends and the darkness begins. Her hair is long and tangled. The red lights shine through it. They outline her silhouette. The kitchen is no longer the one you remember. The refrigerator is rusted. The oven door hangs open. The wooden table is broken down the middle. The walls are cracked. Your childhood home has rotted around her. The garden door is gone. She stands perfectly still, facing you. Do not look away. Do not move. Do not let her know you are afraid. She cannot be allowed to see. You keep your eyes fixed on her. There is another door to your right. The door leading back into the narrow hallway. The same way you entered. A trap. A promise of safety that will become dangerous the moment you acknowledge it. Do not look at it. Do not look. Do not let her see you look. Your eyes move. Only for a second. You looked. You know immediately. A mistake. Her mouth opens. The scream hits you. It is not human. It is so loud that your vision shakes. Pain tears through your head. You cover your ears. No. The shriek grows. This is my world. You try to shout over her. Not yours. You know it is a lie. The knife enters your stomach. You do not see it move. 1 second you are standing. The next, a blade is buried beneath your ribs. Heat spreads through your abdomen. Nausea rises into your throat. You know this pain. That thought frightens you more than the knife. You should not know what being stabbed feels like. How do you know? She has not moved. But the knives have. Dozens of them hover in the air around her. Her mouth remains open. Then her eyes open. Black, endless, there is hatred inside them. Not anger, not rage. Hatred older than anything you understand. All of it is directed at you. What did I do? Your voice shakes. Why are you doing this? She does not answer. Why do you always do this? You look down. The knife remains inside your stomach. The pain is real. You grip the handle and pull. Your body screams. Blood pours from the wound. Warm blood. It runs down your stomach and soaks through your clothes. The fabric sticks to your skin. No, you refuse. I am not powerless. You raise one hand. You command her to move backwards. Nothing. You imagine a force hitting her. Nothing. You command the knife in your hand to fly. It shoots towards her. The blade strikes her chest. She does not react. You focus harder. Be crushed. The air around her bends. You have seen this effect before. Pressure folds around her body. The room seems to warp. Still she does not move. Am I powerless? The thought appears, forbidden, fear. The moment you feel it, the punishment begins. A blade cuts your arm, another slices your thigh. One tears across your neck. You scream. She is closer now. You did not see her move. Her mouth is wider. Her eyes are deeper. The fear made her stronger. You made a mistake. The door. Do not think about the door. Too late. Her body begins to stretch. She grows until she fills most of the kitchen. Long arms hang at her sides. Her hair spreads across the walls. But the exit remains open. You run. Something slices your back. Then another blade. You reach the door and throw yourself into the hallway. The narrow brick passage. The way you came. If you can reach the other end, maybe she cannot follow. Just run. Do not look back. You look back. She is there, coming after you, too close. Her face is stretched into something long and twisted. Black eyes fill most of it. Her hair no longer looks like hair. Tendrils whip against the brick walls. They scrape and bite at the stone. Knives float around her. So many knives. Her arms are thin and impossibly long. They reach forward from the darkness, pulling her body towards you. Fast, too fast. You turn forward. The end of the hallway is near. You can make it. Then you feel the first knife hit your back. One, then another. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They keep coming. Each impact punches through muscle. Some strike ribs. One enters close to your spine. You feel metal moving inside your body with every step. Something tears. You stumble. The floor disappears. You fall. Too far. Farther than the hallway should allow. Blackness opens beneath you. 7, 8, 9, 10. More knives strike. You lose count. 12, maybe 13. It will not stop. She will not stop. You twist in the darkness while falling. If she is going to attack you, you would rather face her. At least then you can defend yourself. You turn. She is above you. Knives are held in her hands. Others are tangled in her hair. She falls with you. The blades flash. Then you hit the ground. Every knife already buried in your back is driven deeper. Your vision turns white. Somehow you can still breathe. You do not have time to wonder why. She lands on top of you. Her weight pins your body to the floor. You try to rise. Impossible. She begins stabbing. You lift your arms. Block. That is all you can do. One knife strikes your forearm. You knock it aside. Another cuts your wrist. Another scrapes along the bone. You keep blocking. Every successful defense still removes something. Skin, blood, flesh. You look at your arm. Muscle is exposed. You can see part of the bone beneath it. How can I still move? The question does not matter. You fight. You only need to survive one more second. Then one more. Then another. She smiles. Terror enters completely now. You cannot hold it away. Why should you? How much pain are you supposed to take while pretending not to be afraid? Still, you block. A blade cuts across the back of your hand. Skin peels away. Another strike removes more. You watch pieces of yourself fall onto the floor. You feel less pain now. That is worse. You continue fighting because stopping feels impossible. Even after all reason tells you the fight is already lost. Your arms weaken. Your hands barely respond. I can't win. You know it. I can't even survive. Then the final wave comes. 20 knives, maybe more. They enter your sides almost at once. You gasp. The blades slide between your ribs, some lower, some higher. Hands hold the handles. Hands that almost look gray, thin, dead. You try to breathe. Nothing enters. Pressure fills your chest. Your lungs refuse to move. You cannot fight now. Your arms drop. You know what this means. This is the end. You look up at her. Her face is close. She is smiling. Not cruelly. That is what makes it horrible. There is joy in her expression. Compassion. Affection. Her sharp teeth shine between her lips. She takes a long breath. Wet, rasping, something bubbles in her throat. Then she speaks. I love you. You see the final knife. 21. Two pale skeletal hands hold the handle. She raises it above you. You watch it come down. All of her impossible weight follows it. The blade enters your chest, straight into your heart. Pressure, only pressure. Then you sit upright in bed. Your hand flies to your chest. No knife, no blood, no wounds. Your room is dark. Your breathing is fast. For several seconds you cannot understand where you are. The garden is gone. The kitchen is gone. She is gone. You are safe. You look around, your bedroom, your home. Reality, you slowly lower your hand. Your heart is still beating. You wipe sweat from your forehead and try to laugh. Just a dream. A terrible, stupid dream. You sit there until your breathing begins to settle. Then you notice how dry your throat feels. You are unbelievably thirsty. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed. You walk towards the kitchen. You turn on the faucet. Water fills the glass. You stare down at it. Something about this feels familiar. For a moment, you almost remember why. Then, the thought disappears. You turn off the faucet. A nice glass of water to calm the nerves. You look towards the window. It is pitch black outside, so dark that you cannot even see the hedges. You lift the glass. Must be late. And somewhere behind you, in a room that does not exist yet, a woman begins to smile. Story 4. I have pulled somewhere north of 4,000 baby teeth in my career. That number sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but after 22 years working in the same dental practice, you stop counting individual teeth and start thinking in years, generations almost. My office sits in a tired little strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation business that seems to change its name every spring. The sign above my door has been replaced twice. The carpet in the waiting room has been replaced 3 times. The fish tank is newer than half my employees. I have watched toddlers grow into teenagers. Teenagers become parents. And those parents bring their own children to sit in the same blue dental chair they once cried in. After that long, you learn things about children. Adults lie carefully. Children do not. Children tell you everything because you are already leaning over them with your fingers inside their mouth. And at that point, there is not much dignity left to protect. Parents usually wait outside, scrolling through their phones while their kids tell me about things no dentist needs to know. They tell me which parent drinks too much. They tell me about the dog that got hit by a car. They tell me about the uncle nobody mentions anymore. They tell me their parents are getting divorced 3 weeks before their parents finally tell anyone else. Once, a 6-year-old told me there was a woman inside his wardrobe who only appeared on Sundays. His mother later explained that he had an active imagination. I believed her. You have to. If you treated every strange thing a child said as truth, you would never sleep again. So when 7-year-old Nolan Pruitt told me that the tooth fairy left him notes instead of money, I did not think much of it. Kids create stories. That is what they do. Nolan had been coming to me since he was 4. Quiet kid. Very serious. He had dark hair that always looked freshly cut and a habit of staring directly at adults when they spoke to him. He was in the chair for a routine exam when he mentioned it. I had just finished checking one of his molars when I asked whether the tooth fairy had visited after he lost his latest tooth. Most children get excited by that question. Nolan went still. I asked, "Did she leave you something?" He nodded. "Money?" He shook his head. "What did she leave?" "A note." I laughed lightly. "A note? What did it say?" That was when he did something I had never seen a child do during an examination. He closed his mouth. Completely, the suction tube was still hooked over his lower lip, and my mirror was almost inside his mouth, but he shut his jaw and shook his head. I leaned back. "All right," I said. "Secret?" He nodded. His mother was standing near the doorway. She laughed. "We do dollar coins," she said. "The gold-colored ones from the bank. His dad bought a whole roll because apparently normal dollars weren't magical enough." Nolan looked at me while she talked. He did not look at her. There was something strange in his expression. Not fear. More like he and I were sharing information his mother did not understand. At checkout, while his mother was discussing insurance with my receptionist, Nolan came back toward me. He reached into his jacket pocket. "I can show you," he whispered. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. He held it in both hands, carefully cupped, almost like he was showing me an insect he did not want to escape. The paper looked old even though it could not have been. The handwriting was tiny, incredibly small, smaller than anything I could produce even with a fine point pen and a magnifying lens. Rows of letters had been packed across the page from edge to edge. The writer had pressed so hard that the paper was torn in 2 places. The writing was not made with ordinary ink. The center of each line was darker, almost brown-black, with lighter smears around the edges. It looked rubbed into the paper rather than written on it. I leaned closer. "What does it say?" Nolan folded it immediately. "It's for me. From the tooth fairy?" He nodded. Then he smiled. "She whispers when she reaches under my pillow." That caught my attention. "What does she whisper?" Nolan looked toward his mother. Then he looked back at me. "She calls me a different name." "What name?" He smiled wider. "Not Nolan." His mother called him from the reception desk. Nolan put the paper back into his pocket and ran to her. I remember watching him leave. There was something about the conversation that bothered me, but I could not have explained why. Maybe it was the handwriting. Maybe it was the way he talked about the whispering. Or maybe it was the fact that he was not afraid. That is the part I need you to understand. Nolan was proud. He spoke about the thing under his pillow the way another child might speak about being chosen for an award. I have a personal rule about not diagnosing parents, and I have an even stronger rule about not turning a child's imagination into a family crisis. Kids invent. Kids lie. They lie constantly, beautifully, and usually for harmless reasons. I finished my workday. I went home. I forgot about Nolan Pruitt. Almost 4 months passed. Then his mother called. She said Nolan had a loose tooth and asked if I could fit him in. Loose teeth are basically my entire professional life, so normally that request would not have meant anything. But his mother sounded worried. Not panicked, just wrong. I asked which tooth. She did not know. I told her to bring him in. They arrived that afternoon. Nolan climbed into the chair smiling. His mother sat near the wall with her arms folded tightly across her chest. I checked his mouth. The loose tooth was number 19, the lower left first permanent molar, a 6-year molar. Those teeth usually come in around age 6, and unlike baby teeth, they are meant to stay for the rest of your life. Nolan's had erupted perfectly 14 months earlier. I remembered because I had taken the x-ray myself. Now it moved beneath my finger like a fence post planted in wet mud. I stared at it. There was no visible decay, no injury, no infection. His gums looked healthy. I asked his mother if he had fallen. No. Had he been hit in the mouth? No. Grinding? Not enough to explain this. I took an x-ray. The image made me sit down. The root was disappearing. Resorption, the body was breaking down the root of a healthy permanent tooth as though it had received instructions that the tooth was temporary, as though it needed to be returned. I referred Nolan to a specialist. I documented everything. I told myself it was rare, but rare things happen. Dentistry is full of strange cases. Maybe this was the sort of condition that would eventually appear in a medical journal under a title containing 6 Latin words nobody outside the field could pronounce. Then, Addison Velasquez came in. 9 years old, upper lateral incisor, adult tooth, loose, no trauma, no decay, root resorption. Then the Kowalski twins. Different permanent teeth, same problem. Then Deacon Price. I still cannot open Deacon's file without feeling sick. His mother brought him to me because he had started pulling out his own teeth. Not baby teeth, healthy adult teeth. She said he would sit at the dinner table with his fingers in his mouth, slowly pushing one tooth back and forth. He did it in the car, at school, while watching television. For weeks, he was patient. Pain did not seem to bother him. If his gums bled, he wiped the blood away and kept going. When a tooth finally came free, he became excited. His mother said he would run upstairs to his bedroom holding it like he had just received a Christmas present. I asked to speak with Deacon alone. His mother agreed. I waited until the door was closed. Then I asked him why he wanted the teeth out. He smiled. She likes the big ones better. My stomach tightened. Who? He looked at me as though the answer should have been obvious. The tooth fairy. I did not respond. Does she leave you money? He laughed. No. What does she leave? Notes. I remember gripping the arm of my chair. What did the notes say? His smile disappeared. I'm not supposed to tell grown-ups. That was the moment I started keeping records. Not official records. I already had those. I created a separate folder at home. I know how that sounds. I know what a reasonable person would think. A dentist secretly collecting information about children and tooth fairy stories sounds like the beginning of a professional ethics hearing. I kept the folder anyway. Over 3 years, I identified 11 children. The pattern was too clean to ignore. It always began with the last baby tooth. That was the door. At least, that is what I came to believe. The child lost the final baby tooth. They placed it beneath the pillow. The family expected money. Instead, the child found a note. After that, permanent teeth began loosening, one at a time. Sometimes there were weeks between them, sometimes months. The children were never frightened. They were excited. They would wiggle those adult teeth constantly, helping them come loose faster. Parents complained that they could not get the children to stop. The children acted like they were paying off a debt they were happy to owe. Every time a tooth came out, another note appeared, and when the teeth ran out, the notes stopped. Harper Brandt was the oldest case. She was 12 when her mother brought her in to discuss partial dentures. I usually have that conversation with people in their 70s, not 7th graders. Harper had already lost 11 permanent teeth. Not through disease, not through trauma. They had simply loosened, one after another. Her mother had taken her to hospitals and specialists in 3 different cities. They had run blood tests, genetic panels, scans, everything. No explanation. Harper sat through the consultation with both hands resting flat against her thighs. She barely spoke. When her mother stepped outside to speak with the insurance company, Harper looked at me. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do teeth ever grow in 3 times?" The question hit me harder than I expected. I pulled my chair closer. "No, Harper, never. Not naturally." She nodded. Her face remained still. Then her eyes filled with tears. They rolled down her cheeks without her making a sound. I had seen hundreds of children cry in my office. Children cry loudly. They cry angrily. They cry because they are scared or hurt. Harper cried like an adult, quietly, as if she had already accepted the answer. "The notes stopped in March," she said. I waited. The whispering stopped too. I felt cold. "Whispering?" She nodded. "Under your pillow?" "Yes." "What did she say?" Harper wiped one cheek. "She used to call me something." "A name?" "Yes." "What name?" Her mouth shook. "I can't remember." I did not know what to say. "I keep trying to hear it in my head," she continued. "But it's gone." She looked directly at me. I really liked who I was when she said it. I have never forgotten that sentence. I still drive past the Brandt house sometimes. I do not know why. Maybe I expect to see Harper standing in a window. Maybe I hope I will find proof that she grew up normally. The porch light is always on, even in the middle of the afternoon. That brings me to my daughter. Her name is Wren. She is 6 years old. 3 weeks ago, her first tooth became loose. Lower central incisor. Perfectly normal. Exactly on schedule. She came running into the garage while I was working on the lawnmower. "Dad." I looked up. She was grinning and pushing the tooth back and forth with her tongue. Look, my stomach dropped. Most parents would have smiled. I stood there holding a socket wrench and thinking about 11 children and a folder hidden inside my desk. I had rehearsed that moment for 3 years. That evening, my wife and I sat Wren down. We told her the truth. Gently, the Tooth Fairy is a story, I said. A fun story parents tell children. Wren looked disappointed for maybe 3 seconds. Then she shrugged. "What happens to my tooth?" "We'll keep it. Forever? If you want." "And do I still get money?" I laughed. "Yes, then okay." Kids handle truth better than adults think. We bought a small metal box for her teeth. I made the rule very clear. No teeth under the pillow. Nothing offered. No invitations. No games. Whatever arrangement those other families had unknowingly entered in, we would not. As far as I was concerned, we had formally declined. The tooth came out on a Tuesday. During dinner, Wren bit into garlic bread and suddenly stopped chewing. She pulled the bread away. The tiny tooth was stuck in it. She screamed with excitement. We rinsed it, dried it, placed it in the little metal box. I put the box on top of her dresser, across the room from the bed. The placement was deliberate. I even moved the dresser farther from the mattress. My wife teased me. I pretended it was nothing. 2 nights later, I woke at exactly 3 in the morning. At first, I did not know what had woken me. Then I heard Wren talking. Her bedroom was across the hall. Her voice was low and happy. The same voice she used when speaking to her stuffed animals. A few words. Pause. A few more. Pause. Like half of a conversation. I got out of bed. My wife did not wake. I crossed the hallway. Wren's door was slightly open. I stood outside and listened. Silence. I pushed the door wider. Wren was asleep, flat on her back, arms outside the covers, breathing slowly. I stood there for nearly a minute. I started feeling ridiculous. Kids talk in their sleep, perfectly normal. I turned to leave. Then something stopped me. I still do not know what. Maybe instinct, maybe fear. I went back to the bed. I slid my hand beneath Wren's pillow. My fingers touched something hard. I pulled it out. A tooth, not Wren's. I knew immediately. It was an adult molar. Lower second molar. Large, fully developed. Wet, I stared at it. The enamel reflected the weak hallway light. There was no blood. I looked toward the dresser. The little metal box was sitting there, open. The lid had been folded back. I crossed the room and looked inside. Empty. Wren's baby tooth was gone. I turned toward her. She was still sleeping. There was something else beneath the pillow. Paper. I pulled it out, folded once. My hands were already shaking before I opened it. The handwriting was tiny, cramped, pressed almost completely through the paper. The same handwriting Nolan had shown me years earlier. The message said, she didn't have any to give, so I brought one instead. She is so beautiful when she sleeps. I read it again and again, maybe 10 times. My brain simply refused to understand. Then I did something stupid and automatic. I ran my tongue across my teeth. Left side. Upper, lower, front, back, something felt wrong. I checked again. There was a gap in my lower left jaw. Second molar. I went into the bathroom and turned on the light. I opened my mouth. The tooth was gone. Completely, the socket was smooth. No blood, no swelling, no pain, no wound. It looked like the tooth had been removed years earlier, and the gum had healed perfectly. I held the wet molar in my hand. My molar. I never felt it come out. That happened 4 days ago. I have not slept more than an hour at a time since. I keep checking my teeth. Constantly, my tongue has become sore from running across them. 2 things have happened since that night. The first is that Wren's next baby tooth is already loose. Lower central incisor. Right beside the first one. Too soon. She wiggles it during breakfast. She wiggles it in the car. She wiggles it while doing homework. Patient as a saint, exactly like Deacon. Yesterday I finally grabbed her hand. Stop touching it. She looked surprised. Why? Because you're making it looser. That's good. No, it isn't. She frowned. I want it out. Why? She did not answer. I tried to calm down. Sweetheart, remember what we said. When it falls out naturally, it goes in the tin box. She smiled. What? No pillow, I reminded her. The box. Your dollar comes from Dad. Remember? She nodded. That's okay. Something in her voice made my skin tighten. What's okay? I don't need to put it under the pillow. Why not? Wren looked at me exactly the way Nolan Pruitt had looked at me over his mother's shoulder all those years ago, like she knew something I did not. The Tooth Fairy already told me my new name. I felt the room tilt. What? She smiled. My new name. What name? Wren shook her head. I'm not allowed to tell you. Why? She said you can't hear it yet. Yet that word has been living inside my skull ever since. Last night I moved Wren into our bedroom. My wife thinks I am having some kind of breakdown. I finally showed her the folder. all 11 cases, the x-rays, the records, my notes about the whispers and the names. She read everything. She did not laugh. We pushed our bed against the wall and put Wren between us. I locked the bedroom door. I covered the windows. I placed Wren's little metal tooth box inside my safe. Then I sat awake. At 2:58 in the morning, Wren began smiling in her sleep. At 3:00, someone knocked beneath the bed, 3 soft taps. My wife sat upright. Neither of us moved. 3 more taps. Then a woman whispered from beneath the mattress. Not loudly, tenderly, like a mother speaking to a baby. She said a word. I could not understand it. Wren smiled wider. The voice repeated the word. My wife covered her mouth. I leaned over the edge of the mattress. I do not know why. Maybe 22 years of dentistry has trained me to investigate the thing that frightens everyone else. I looked underneath. Nothing. Then something small rolled from the darkness. A tooth. It stopped against my hand. An adult canine. Freshly removed. Still warm. The whisper came again. This time it came from behind me. She needs 31 more. I turned. No one was there. Wren opened her eyes. She looked directly at me. Dad, I could barely speak. What? She says you shouldn't keep mine from her. My wife grabbed Wren. Who says that? Wren looked confused. The lady. What lady? The one with all the teeth. I asked Wren what she looked like. I regret asking. Wren said she was very tall. She said her dress touched the floor, but her feet did not. She said the woman's hair was long enough to cover her face. She said there were little strings tied throughout the hair. Each string had a tooth hanging from it. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Baby teeth were near the bottom. Adult teeth were higher. Wren said the woman had no teeth in her own mouth. Not yet. What does that mean? I asked. Wren shrugged. She says she's building them. Building what? A smile. I had to leave the room. I vomited in the bathroom. This morning I called every parent in my private folder. I broke every professional rule I have ever followed. I asked whether their children remembered the name. Most did not. Harper's mother hung up on me. Deacon's father told me never to call again. Nolan's mother listened. Nolan is 10 now. She said he lost his final permanent tooth 7 months ago. Every tooth. Gone. I asked how he was doing. There was a long silence. Then she said something strange. He doesn't talk much anymore. Does he still get notes? No. Does he still hear whispering? Another pause. No. I almost felt relieved. Then she said, but sometimes at night he stands beside our bed and moves his mouth like he's talking to someone. I asked if he remembers the name. She started crying. He doesn't remember his own. I drove to Nolan's house. I should not have. His mother let me in because she was desperate. Nolan sat on the living room floor. He looked healthy. Older thin, when he smiled at me, his mouth was completely empty. He recognized me, I think. I asked him about the tooth fairy. His eyes lit up, that same pride. Do you remember what she called you? His smile disappeared. He shook his head. Do you remember your real name? He stared at me. I waited. Nothing. His mother began crying behind me. Then Nolan opened his mouth. A whisper came out, not his voice, a woman's. She remembers for him. I left. I drove straight to my office. I opened every file, every x-ray, every note. I finally understood what the teeth were. Payment, but not for money, not even for the children. The notes give them something. A name, a secret identity. Something that makes them feel chosen, special, loved, and every tooth buys them another night of hearing it. When the teeth run out, the name is taken away. Maybe something else is taken with it. Memory, identity, whatever part of a person understands who they are. That is why Harper cried. She had not only lost the whisper, she had lost the person she became when it spoke to her. And Wren has barely begun. I thought refusing the Tooth Fairy story would protect her. I thought no pillow meant no invitation. I was wrong. The thing does not need the child's tooth. It only needs a tooth. If Wren will not offer one, it will take one from someone nearby. From me. From my wife. Maybe eventually from strangers. I checked my mouth this afternoon. Another tooth is moving. Upper right first molar. Healthy yesterday. Loose today. I took my own x-ray. The root has already started disappearing. My body is giving it back. Wren's baby tooth came out an hour ago. She did not pull it. She was sitting on the couch watching television when it simply fell into her hand. She looked at me, then at the tooth. Then she smiled. I took it from her. She did not fight me. That frightened me more than if she had screamed. I locked it inside a steel container and drove it to my office. I put it inside the medical waste incinerator. I watched until there was nothing left. When I got home, Wren was waiting near the front door. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. My wife asked what she meant. Wren ignored her. She looked at me. She worked hard on that name. I asked, "What name?" Wren smiled. "I told you, you can't hear it yet. Tonight, we are not sleeping. I have removed every pillow from the house. It probably does not matter. The beds are gone too. I dragged the mattresses into the garage. It probably does not matter either. I have my dental tools spread across the kitchen table. Forceps, elevators, mirrors, things I have used safely for 22 years. I keep wondering whether there is something I can do if my teeth begin loosening faster. Pull them myself? Destroy them? Would that count as giving them? Or does the thing only care that they leave the body? I do not know. At 11:30, Wren fell asleep on the couch. My wife is sitting beside her. I am at the kitchen table. There is a note in front of me. It appeared 5 minutes ago. Neither of us saw who placed it there. The handwriting is tiny. It says, "You have spent your life taking teeth from children. You should understand better than anyone that teeth are meant to be collected." Below that is another sentence. 30 to finish hers, 27 to finish yours. I have counted my teeth 6 times. 27. Every remaining tooth in my mouth. Something just moved in the hallway. My wife heard it too. Wren is still asleep. The sound is soft, like fingernails tapping against teeth. There is someone standing outside the kitchen. I can see a shadow beneath the door. Tall, too tall. My wife is crying. I told her not to wake Wren. The shadow has not moved. A note just slid beneath the door. I do not want to read it. I know I have to. The paper says, "She chose beautifully." My wife asked what that means. Before I could answer, Wren sat up. Her eyes are still closed. She is smiling. She whispered something. At first, I thought she was talking to the thing outside the kitchen. Then I realized she was talking to me. "Dad? Yes?" She says you can hear your new name now. The doorknob is turning, and every tooth in my mouth just became loose. Story 5. I want to stay somewhat anonymous, so you can call me Connie. I'm 17 now, and after thinking about everything that happened while I was growing up, I've slowly come to the conclusion that I may have been a little haunted as a kid. I know how that sounds. I'm not saying I have proof of ghosts, psychic abilities, or anything supernatural. In fact, I usually prefer scientific explanations because they make me feel safer. I've also dealt with OCD, ADHD, anxiety, panic attacks, hallucinations, tics, and emotional instability. So I understand that my brain is capable of creating experiences that feel completely real. I want that to be clear before I tell any of this. Maybe everything has a rational explanation. Maybe my mind connected events that were never actually related. Still, there are some things I have never been able to explain. I've always been considered the weird one. I've been goth for about 6 years now. But even before that, I had strange interests compared to other kids. I loved Halloween, horror movies, creepypastas, ghost hunting shows, and anything connected to the occult. Even when I was young, I was drawn toward things that were dark, mysterious, or difficult to explain. My family lives in Connecticut, which probably adds to the atmosphere. There are old houses everywhere, wooded roads, forgotten cemeteries, and buildings that look like they have been standing there since before anyone alive can remember. The earliest strange memory I can clearly remember happened when I was around 2 or 3 years old. My parents had recently moved into a new house and were doing major renovations. One day, they started tearing down a wall in the basement. Behind it, they discovered a hidden room that nobody had told them about when they bought the place. The moment that wall came down, a terrible smell spread through the basement. The hidden space was packed with old garbage. There were bags filled with paper, children's clothing, old toys, and random junk. It looked as though someone had sealed everything inside and then built a wall over it. According to my mother, I completely lost control when the room was opened. I started screaming and crying. Not normal toddler crying, either. She said I seemed genuinely terrified, like I recognized something inside that room. Once she managed to calm me down enough to understand what I was saying, she asked what was wrong. I apparently looked toward the hidden room and said, "Their daddy hid them inside there." I was barely old enough to speak properly. Nobody knows where I got that sentence. My parents searched the room and found nothing that clearly suggested a crime had happened there. No bodies, no bones, nothing that could explain why I would say something like that. They renovated the basement anyway. I avoided that area whenever I could. For the next few years, I regularly talked to people who were not there. I had a toy phone, and my parents would sometimes find me having long conversations with it. Other times, I would face an empty wall and talk as if someone were standing directly in front of me. When adults asked who I was speaking to, I would say they were my ghost friends. I do have a vague memory of seeing them. The best way I can describe them is that they looked similar to the ghost in the crossed-out Ghostbusters logo. I think that was simply how my young brain understood what I thought I was seeing. They were pale shapes with faces, not completely human, but still recognizable as people. They never frightened me. They never threatened me. To me, they were just there. By the time I was around 7, I stopped seeing them. As I got older, I convinced myself that I had invented them because I was a child with an active imagination. There was another strange thing that happened around the same time we moved into that house. My parents were happy to have a fresh start. They were still together then, and everything seemed to be going well. About a month after the hidden room incident, I walked up to my mother and put my hand on her stomach. "Mommy, there's a baby in your belly. You know?" She laughed and told me there was not. I insisted. She was not showing any physical signs of pregnancy. As far as she knew, there was no reason for me to say it. She took a pregnancy test anyway. I was right. My sister was born around 7 or 8 months later. Within another year, my mother became pregnant again. Once again, I told her before she knew. This time, it was twins, a boy and a girl. The boy would have been the first male child born in that generation of our family, and the girl would have been the third daughter. But one night, I woke my mother up crying. I was completely upset and kept touching her stomach. "The baby is missing," I told her. "It's gone." My mother tried to calm me down, but I would not stop. Eventually, she went to the hospital. The boy was gone. Doctors believed his body had been absorbed during the pregnancy. There was almost no physical evidence left that he had ever been there. I know there are medical explanations for things like that. What bothers me is the timing. How did I know? Those strange predictions and feelings faded as I got older. From around 7 to 10, I cannot remember many supernatural experiences at all. Those years were difficult for other reasons. My parents divorced, and we moved several times. My life felt unstable, and maybe I was simply too distracted by real problems to notice anything unusual. For a while, everything seemed normal. Then the night terrors started. For almost a year, usually sometime between 11 at night and 4 in the morning, I would sleepwalk through the house. Sometimes it happened once a week, sometimes more often. My eyes would be open, but I was not awake. Some episodes were harmless. I would walk into the kitchen and get water or stand in the hallway doing nothing. Others were terrifying. I would scream, fight, run through the house, and sometimes hurt myself or other people. I never remembered any of it when I woke up. Most of what I know comes from stories my family told me afterward. During one vacation in the Florida Keys, I somehow left where we were staying and wandered toward the beach while still asleep. Another time, I stood at the foot of my parents' bed in the middle of the night and cried without explaining why. One of the worst incidents happened in a room where I slept in a loft bed and my sisters had bunk beds nearby. While sleepwalking, I suddenly jumped from my loft onto the top bunk. I attacked one of my sisters. I hit her hard enough to make her bleed while screaming, "Get out of her!" My family had to pull me away. I remembered absolutely nothing the next morning. During another episode, I screamed about a volcano killing a huge population of wild dogs. Sometimes I ran through the hallways shouting, "Get away from me," or "Leave me alone." I would wake the next morning covered in scratches and bruises. The marks became bad enough that teachers asked whether everything was okay at home. Sometimes there were welts on my arms or legs even when nobody remembered me falling or hitting anything. A few times, I woke with marks that looked like small handprints. They were about the size of a child's hands. Again, I know there are reasonable possibilities. I could have grabbed myself while sleeping. I could have scratched my skin. I had severe insomnia, and my anxiety was becoming worse. Still, some mornings I would look at those marks and wonder. Eventually, we moved again. Our previous home was too small. There were 3 girls, my mother, my stepfather, and my stepbrother living together. We had only 3 bedrooms and not enough common space. The new house became our current home. It is old. It was built generations ago and used to belong to farmers. The previous owners raised rabbits and tapped trees for syrup. The property itself is beautiful. There are around 7 acres of land. with woods and open areas leading toward a large brook at the far end. The house has an unfinished basement that we eventually turned partly into my parents' bedroom. There is also a boiler room, 3 regular bedrooms, an office, 2 bathrooms, and large living spaces. Then there is the dirt room. It is in the basement. The entire room has walls and a floor made from hard-packed earth. We were told it was originally used for storing canned food, vegetables, and preserves because it stayed cool. We almost never go inside. Storage bins block the door, and the door itself is locked twice from the outside. There has always been a wind chime hanging from the handle. The previous owners specifically told us to leave it there. They never explained why. I hated the house from the first time I entered. Nothing terrible happened immediately. I simply felt uncomfortable. There was a heavy sense of dread that I could not explain. I remember walking through the rooms while everyone else talked about how much space we had, and all I could think was that I did not want to stay there. My bedroom made that feeling worse. It is on the 2nd floor and has a walk-in closet. At the very back of the closet is a tiny door, almost like something from Coraline. The door was nailed shut. Eventually, curiosity got the better of us, and we managed to open it slightly. There was nothing dramatic inside. It led to a small wooden nook containing spare screws, bits of wood, and an old candy wrapper. Still, I hated that door. The closet itself has always been strange. Even during hot summer months, it stays noticeably colder than the rest of my bedroom. I would guess the difference is around 5 to 10 degrees. There is no obvious outside opening that explains it. When I was younger, I had trouble sleeping because of noises above me. I heard soft footsteps in the ceiling, sometimes scratching. The noises would continue until I hit the ceiling with a broom handle. Then they would stop. I also had the same nightmare repeatedly. In it, a girl crawled across my ceiling while I slept. She never spoke. She simply stayed above my bed and watched me. One afternoon, when I came home from middle school, I opened my closet and found several deep scratches in the wall. They were around 6 inches long. They did not look like damage from hangers or shelves. There was nothing lying on the floor beneath them that could have scraped the paint. The marks crossed the wall from the upper left toward the middle right, almost as if something had dragged claws down the surface. They were several millimeters deep. A black substance covered them. It looked like charcoal or soot. The moment I saw those marks, I felt cold. When I touched them, a sudden wave of dread hit my stomach. We eventually painted over them. Another story did not happen directly to me. We had a babysitter I will call Kyle. In the mornings, Kyle helped us get ready for school, watched us leave on the bus, let the dogs outside, and then went to work. Years later, during a family party, he finally told us about something he saw inside the house. One morning after we had left for school, Kyle was walking through the main hallway toward the kitchen. He saw a dark shape coming down the stairs. At first, he thought it was one of our pets. Then the figure dropped onto all fours. It crawled across the floor toward the basement stairs like a cat. The problem was its size. It was too small to be our black Labrador. It was too large to be our calico cat. Kyle watched it crawl down the basement stairs. A few seconds later, he heard the wind chime attached to the dirt room door. He left the house immediately. He ran out so quickly that he did not even lock the doors. I had another experience in the kitchen. I was emptying food scraps from a bowl into the garbage when I suddenly felt that familiar bolt of fear in my stomach. It was instant. 1 second, I felt completely normal. The next, Every part of my body was telling me something was wrong. I looked toward the hallway. A figure was peeking around the corner. It was roughly my height at the time, around 5'2". I could not see clear facial features. The second I noticed it, it moved back out of sight. I dropped the bowl. A wave of nausea hit me, and I ran outside to my mother. She did not believe me. Another time, I was standing in the kitchen writing something on the family calendar. Once again, that sense of dread appeared. I looked around, but saw nothing. The feeling became so powerful that I started crying without understanding why. It was similar to the way your eyes water right before sneezing, mixed with the feeling you get when you know you are in serious trouble. I called our dog into the kitchen because I wanted company. He refused to come near me. Instead, he stared at the wall behind me. The fur along his back stood up. He growled, then he started barking. I did not turn around for several seconds because I was terrified of what I might see. There was nothing there when I finally looked. Most of the activity seemed to calm down by the time I reached 8th grade. Since then, I have not experienced much inside the house itself. What remained was the dread. I still sometimes get a sudden cold, sick feeling before something bad happens. I know confirmation bias exists. I understand that people remember the times their instincts seem correct and forget the hundreds of times nothing happens. Still, some examples bother me. One of my great-grandmothers lived in Arizona and had terminal cancer. We knew she did not have much time left. About a week before she died, I suddenly felt that heavy dread for no obvious reason. It became much worse 2 days before another one of my great-grandmothers was unexpectedly found dead during the same week. Another time, I felt it shortly before learning that the father of someone in my friend group had been diagnosed with cancer. I felt it again only hours before finding out that a friend's pet had died. Sometimes it happens before less serious events like surprise quizzes or important news. The stronger the bad news, the stronger the feeling seems to be. There is one example that sounds so ridiculous that I almost do not like telling people. On September 9th, 2025, I suddenly could not stop thinking about Charlie Kirk. I was not someone who normally spent time thinking about him. For whatever reason, that day I kept wondering why no one had ever tried to seriously attack such a high-profile political figure. I even posted something about it on my Instagram story. Less than 13 hours later, I saw reports that he had been assassinated. I know how insane that sounds. I am not claiming that I predicted it. I am saying that the timing disturbed me. Recently, I have been getting that same dread again. This time it comes with the feeling that I am being watched. Sometimes I get the strange thought that someone somewhere is thinking about me too much, although I have no evidence for that. There is another story that feels less like a haunting and more connected to witchcraft. One of my great uncles from Arizona has a girlfriend from Connecticut who identifies as a witch. They travel together, and during one visit she came to my mother's brother's house. She brought tarot cards. Before she started any readings, she showed everyone the deck. My aunt suddenly crossed the room and brought over a painting I had made about a week earlier. I almost never paint. That week, however, I had felt strangely inspired to paint one specific design. It was an eye floating inside a galaxy. The eye had 3 irises. When my aunt placed the painting beside the tarot deck, everyone became quiet. The exact same design was printed on the back of the cards. 3 irises, the galaxy, the eye. I had never seen the deck before. The woman seemed genuinely shocked. She asked whether she could do a tarot reading for me. I agreed. I cannot remember every card that appeared, but one of them showed a girl holding two cats. The card was upright. The girl had hair similar to mine. She wore a dress strangely similar to the one I had on. The cats were calicos. We had calico cats. For a moment, the room became completely silent. The rest of the reading was mostly normal, but at the end, my great-uncle's girlfriend looked at me and said something close to, "You have an energy around you. There's something inside you that we can't see." That was my first experience with tarot. It was enough to make me curious. I read tarot myself now. Sometimes people become uncomfortable because they think my readings are too accurate. I have even had someone cry and tell me there was no way I should know some of the things I said. I also do cleansing rituals sometimes, but this is where I confuse people. I still do not completely believe in witchcraft. I do not consider myself especially religious either. I enjoy tarot. I enjoy the symbolism. I like rituals and the way they make me feel. But I am still more comfortable with science and things that can be tested. Maybe tarot works because people recognize patterns in broad statements. Maybe my strange feelings come from anxiety. Maybe the figures I saw were hallucinations. Maybe the noises in the ceiling were animals. Maybe the cold closet has poor insulation. Maybe my childhood predictions were coincidences. Maybe all of it can be explained. I actually hope it can, because the alternative makes me uncomfortable. I spent years thinking I was a haunted child. Now I am 17, and most of the obvious experiences have stopped. No more ghost friends, no more violent sleepwalking, no more figures openly standing in hallways. But sometimes, when I walk past the basement stairs late at night, I still look toward the dirt room door. The storage bins are still stacked in front of it. The locks are still in place. And the wind chime is still hanging from the handle exactly where the previous owners told us to leave it. Most nights, it does not move. But every once in a while, when the house is completely quiet and nobody is downstairs, I hear it ring. Just once. A soft little chime from behind the locked door. Whenever that happens, the same feeling returns to my stomach. That cold, familiar dread. And despite everything I know about anxiety, hallucinations, sleep disorders, coincidence, and the strange ways the human brain searches for patterns, I never go downstairs to check.